So we have with us Green Habits. They are located in Penal. We also have the Plant Farm that is located in Reform, and we have Augustine that is in Aranguez. However, they will do a lot of field visits. Those are some of our partners who have lend their support for our initiative. Keep in mind this recording is being done already on my device, and we will be posting this recording on our YouTube page. So once we are on the WhatsApp group, you'll have access to get direct communications with us, and you will be able to maintain that communication channel. Going forward, what I will ask from you is that you maintain that your mute option is maintained. We don't want to have too much disturbances, and we will be opening the floor for all questions at the end of the session. We are here for an hour and a half, so let's get as much completed, and we are going to give you the we are going to give you the benefit that should you require assistance in terms of setting up your own hydroponic systems, the Waking Up Agriculture Foundation is here to lend that technical support free of charge in terms of growing Trinidad and Tobago and our region's food security and resilience. So we'll be working on that. So once you are able to hear me, just show by an icon that you're hearing me. All right, so I think persons are hearing me. Nice. So we are going to start our session. Remember, ensure that your mics are on mute, and we will be good to go. Okay, I'll just leave this on this side here. So we have persons here who are new to hydroponic farming. We have persons who are doing hydroponic farming or doing home gardening. So what we are looking to accomplish at the end of our both sessions, which is module 1 and module 2, we're looking at the introductory fundamental foundation we're going to lay, which is tonight. We're also going to look at drip to waste system because we believe that this particular system is more convenient, it's easy to work with, and it's practical in terms of success stories. And tomorrow, please God, we will be looking at how to go about this fertilizer regime. Sometimes when we hear about hydroponic production, first thing we say is something challenging. But the reality of it is very easy, and we have worked, we have done testing, and it's going to be easy for you to understand. It's simple as 1, 2, 3. So tomorrow we'll cover that. Just to recap, our sponsors for this particular course, we have Green Habits, the Plant Farm, and Agostini. Should you require any additional support, you will already have our WhatsApp number for the NGO. And of course, we are going to be focusing on food security. And just to reiterate what food security is all about, food security focuses on when we as persons, as individuals, families, communities, and as a people have access to safe, nutritious, wholesome food at all times. For the person whose microphone is on, can you please mute? Thank you. Now, what we are seeing are some trends. We have seen so far what are factors that are leading to food insecurity. One of the major factors is that not all persons have that resource in terms of financial resources to purchase food. We also have a major factor where yesterday and the day before was very hot. Now today was very overcast. So with climate change, we are getting some challenges with that. Now keep in mind, this is recorded, so you will have access to the recording. However, we are also seeing that with a lack of education, persons are now challenged to grow their own food. So what we are doing here as our foundation, we are going to be providing a level of training and technical support going forward. So we are going to look at the definition for hydroponic farming, the advantages and challenges affecting hydroponic production, and understanding the drip to waste hydroponic system, some of the input supplies you will need, and how to go about constructing these systems. Now, why hydroponics? This is something new to me, so why must I change my traditional measures? So let's see why we want to consider hydroponic farming. First and foremost, hydroponic farming is the method of growing crops in a nutrient-rich water. That means you're using zero soil. Your plants are able to grow twice as fast. You're reducing your water level or intake by 80%. And trust me, we are having some challenges with getting pipe-borne water. Some communities will even get it in a week or 2 weeks. You have no weeds, so you don't have to be worrying about overgrown gardens, or you're going to have challenges where you are using herbicides or using a lot of manual labor to control this excessive amount of grass growing. Your nutrient is efficient, meaning that it won't be waste in the environment and it goes strictly to your plants only.
Hello?
And then
Hello?
we have the option of
Hello?
yes, sir. Remember, please maintain that your mics are muted and you're going to be using fewer pesticides. Now, growing with soil could be a challenge. However, growing without soil has its benefits. Now, growing plants without soil or soilless medium is what we are referring to as hydroponic farming. Hydroponic farming requires a substrate. So you may see on social media where persons are growing directly in water or they have a medium. Now, all these are substrates. So a liquid could be a substrate. And because it is nutrient filled, that what we will be learning eventually, how to mix the fertilizers, you could go about giving your plants the necessary food to go about carrying about growing. Now, what we have to understand as growers, because it is a soilless medium, in order for your plants to have access to food and nutrition, they need nutrients, and that could only be provided from us, the growers. So whatever your plant gets to grow, it comes from you. So they don't have access to grow into the soil or to grow into anything specific. So in order for your plants to successfully grow, they would require everything from you. So this is like a baby, and you need to give that baby that love, attention, and care, and it will be successful. Now, hydroponics in tropical climates and for homesteaders has its advantages. For example, some of us may be living in an apartment complex. Some of us may have little room available to us, so we could optimize on limited spacing. Also, too, some of us may not have that ability to do a lot of land prep. Now, I tell you, I don't have that time or even an energy to put out to do land preparation. So with hydroponic farming, we are eliminating this land preparation. We also have more control and it's more manageable. So if you have to be watering your crops, it shouldn't be something where you have to worry too much about watering certain times of the day, or even where you have to be going through okay, participants, can you please ensure that your mics are on mute, please? I'm kindly asking that we maintain that the mics are on mute. Let's continue. So we are going to consider some of the advantages. Now, you're having a greater reward. Let's look at this example. With hydroponic growing, you are able to get a higher quality of product because with a controlled environment, we're using less chemicals, we're using less pesticides. So therefore, the nutritional property of your product is greater, more so that you are able to control the amount of inputs. So you don't have to be using it over and over and over again. So based on the growth or the maturity of your plant, so if your plant is bearing, you know how to increase your fertilizers. If your plant is getting more leaves, you can hold back on fertilizers. So that is where we have that level of control, but also we're able to conserve. And more so, we are able to do it in a responsible manner where we're not going to be negatively impacting our environment, us as the consumer, and also to with our neighbors, where we have persons saying those chemical smells are too toxic for us. So we are able to do this in a more controlled, safe, and eco-friendly way. So we are now having that big discussion. Is it really worth doing hydroponic farming? And let's see what we could look at. If we are doing traditional farming, you may have seen some of this. We are seeing under the tomato getting black, your celery stalks and your leaves have these brown spots all over it. And then all of a sudden, my good tomato crop that's wilting down. And for some reason, these lettuce just don't want to grow. We're getting too short leaf, and that is it. It ain't moving at all. So these are some of the challenges with traditional farming. But with hydroponic farming, we have plenty other systems. Some systems you may hear or see on social media like ebb and flow, aeroponics, floating raft, wick systems, and the most common one is NFT, which is this one here. This one on the side here is NFT, which is the most common systems. You may see even these for persons who are challenged with space, so they will go upwards. And then for persons who are looking more conservative, will use a system like this, which is your drip to waste system. Now, the concept for hydroponic farming remains the same. You either have a growing medium, an air pump, nutrient solution, a submersible water pump, a reservoir, a grow tray, and light. Now, we could use our natural light. As West Indians, we have access to that constantly. Now, based on the different types of system, some of these things may be required or some may not be required. So based on the system that you are working with, it will not be required. Now, the system we will be focusing more on in this course is our drip to waste system. And the reason, one of the major reasons why we want to focus on the drip to waste system is because, one, we don't necessarily have to depend on dissolved oxygen. The dissolved oxygen level negatively has an impact on the NFT systems. Hence the reason why we are going towards the drip to waste system, because naturally air pockets are in the drip to waste system. And I know this may be a little challenging to grasp, but trust me, when you have the recordings, you're able to look at it. We will be lending content in terms of your building, your maintenance of your crop as time goes by. Now, we have identified with your drip to waste system, we are using a substrate that is soilless. That means your substrate has no nutritional properties. So let's look at some examples of substrates. We have cocoa peat, cocoa mats. We have wood chips or shavings. We have peat moss, perlite, clay pebbles, sharp sand, rock wool, vermiculite, rice hull, oasis cubes, river rocks, slattered plugs. We have starter plugs. We have grow stones, which is a lot.
Hello, is anybody here? I'm not hearing anything.
Which is a lot to work with. So we are hearing you clearly. So if you're having any challenges, we will try to assist you. So with hydroponic growing medium, so a drip to waste system, we are going to focus on a few items. So it's not going to be too intense. What we want as hydroponic growers for a drip to waste system is something that has good water holding capacity, light in weight, it is loose, that means it doesn't compact, proper drainage, air pockets, free from pests and diseases, practical and easy to treat. So your ideal growing medium for your hydroponic systems, which is your drip to waste system, for your PVC flatbed is your cocoa peat, perlite, and you could combine both. So when you're mixing 1 block of cocoa peat to 1 pound of perlite, and for your grow bags or your bucket systems, you could use sharp sand, wood shavings, cocoa peat, or perlite. Ideally, I always recommend to persons, cocoa peat and perlite is your ideal hydroponic medium for drip to waste system. It is light, it is practical in terms of lifting and moving, and is very effective. You tend to get a better root mass development. So over here, we have cocoa peat, we have perlite, and combined together, we will get our growing medium or growing substrate for our drip to waste system. Now, when we are going to select vessels, which is your containers, your buckets, whatever you may have, we want something that is strong, gives proper drainage, it prevents the penetration of algae, it promotes airflow, and also if there's a case where one plant has a disease, we could treat it individually or independent from the rest of plants. So our vessels that we consider for hydroponic farming is your PVC, your grow pots, your fabric pots, your plant pots. You could even use recycled bottles. It provides the same aspect. So you don't necessarily have to put yourself in expense, which is unnecessary. You could also upcycle what you have available to you right at home. So we are going to understand now, what is this drip to waste system all about? Now, hydroponics can be adopted to grow any crop because it's just an alternative form of growing crops. And that means your drip to waste system is one of the most common, but very effective in terms of practicality and successes in terms of your quality of produce. Now, the term waste is nothing to be too alarmed about. You are not going to be saying, oh gosh, every month I'm wasting money on chemicals, I'm wasting money on fertilizers. The concept of waste is that it simply means the excess amount of nutrient water would just be lost to the environment. So in other words, in order for you to reduce the amount of excess water that is going to be lost to the environment, what you just need to do is to regulate the amount of water that you give to your plants. So less water means less wastage. More water means more wastage. So you as the hydroponic grower, you are responsible to ensure that your excessive amount of fertilizers are not going to your plants and you keep it for future use. So with hydroponic drip to waste system, too much water means excess waste. The right amount of water means little to no wastage. And we are looking at a drip mechanism. We don't want something that is pressurized, something that is at a high flow. We just want a gradual drip. So one of the challenges we have, or the conception as home growers, we want to water our plants where we see the excess water running out. That is not healthy for plants because too much water means we are now putting our plants under stress. And stress could then lead to your plant getting sick and then dying. And we don't want that to happen to us because there's a lot of resources we are putting out to get it done. And one of the resources is time. We don't want our time to go in vain. There are 10 characteristics that a drip to waste system will be focusing on. With a hydroponic system, we have the advantage of reducing water wastage. We can conserve on our water that is right now a challenge for most persons to have access to. We can conserve on fertilizers, meaning that we don't have to apply fertilizers every day or even 4 times a week. We could conserve that to twice a week, 3 times a week, based on what you are doing as the grower. More so, because these systems are more individualized. For instance, if we just want to grow 1 row of lettuce, we could grow 1 row of lettuce and we can now isolate the other areas for future use. Whereas with other systems, you may have to, all will have to be active. If not, they would just be wasting because the systems are all interconnected. We have more control conditions. So if one plant has a disease, we could treat that one particular plant. Whereas with other systems, you are now compromised because that bacteria can now spread throughout the entire system. Energy sustainable. Now, when I started off hydroponic farming, I didn't have that large amount of resources to say I'm going to have my thing fully automated. What I did, I used a bucket and a pan, and I would have manually applied my water and nutrient water. And it doesn't matter how your water reach there. Once your nutrient water is present, that is hydroponic farming. So you don't always have to go that option of using a lot of resources to get your system automated. You can manually water your plants. And eventually when Christmas comes around and you decide to get a nice Christmas gift, you can automate your system. But as it is right now, automation is not required. You can manually water your plants same way, but by using hydroponic fertilizer, your plant grows faster. Greater crop diversity. Other hydroponic systems will limit you to what type of crops you could grow. For example, we may be limited to just leafy crops with NFT systems. However, with your dripped away system, you could grow your leafy crops, you could grow in your fruiting crops, and even your root crops. So your crops like your chive, celery, no problem. Your crops like your tomato, your sweet pepper, no problem. And even your crops like your ginger and your turmeric, you could grow that as well in your dripped away systems. So your diversity level is greater, whereas with your NFT systems, your stacky pot system, they are more limited into what you can grow. So if you're going to put in that resource, at least be able to grow a wide array of crops. Minimal startup cost. As mentioned before, you don't have to go in too much expense. Simple thing as using recycled materials. Now, where I work, nearly every week is somebody's birthday. That means is every week we have access to the creamery buckets. So I could use back those same buckets and grow my favorite cauliflower, pak choy lettuce using the same hydroponic method without putting me in too much of expense. And if for some reason that we have some challenge with whatever we are doing, we could simply do an immediate override. So if you have an automated system that is hydroponically charged, you can switch it on and you can switch it off from apps, from timers. So it is more efficient for you. You don't have to be there every day to physically guard it. It could be automated and controlled wirelessly using your Wi-Fi, and you could also control it using timers. Climate resilience. As mentioned before, Saturday and Sunday was very hot. And when these things happen, that is a form of stress on your plant. When you go outside, you see sometimes your lettuce wilting, your tomato plants drooping because it's very hot. With a hydroponic approach, you are able to maintain that moisture present in your medium. That means your plant is in a more comfortable position. It is less vulnerable to that heat, whereas your traditional growing, your soil will dry out faster. And last but not least, if you are considering this as a commercial option, you can even do this to generate revenue from right at home because it is a fast or quick turnover because hydroponic crops tend to grow at a faster rate because the nutrients that we are giving to our plants, it is water soluble, but that means the fertilizers are readily available. So your plants will have access to nutrients almost immediately when you apply your hydroponic fertilizers. However, with every good thing, we have some challenges. And one of the challenges with hydroponic system, and especially with us in the Caribbean, we are looking at our dry season and then we have our rainy season. And we have had some spells of rain coming in and out. And you may say, well, if I'm using a medium and I'm exposed to excessive rainfall, what negative impact that will have? And the answer to that is yes, you are going to be negatively impacted because too much water means favorable conditions for bacteria. So what can I do? For oversaturated mediums, you could put in proper drainage by adding in more perlite, or you could have it over covering for a shade house or with your shade cloth or plastic. You may ask, well, if it's too much water in, what would that mean? That means you have no airflow. So with no airflow, again, other bacteria are going to love that with no airflow. So what we have to do with our hydroponic drip away system is to ensure that there is proper airflow. And there are some cases where we are using too shallow containers. For example, you may say, well, why use 3-inch PVC pipe versus 4-inch PVC pipe? 3-inch PVC pipe can work, but it will dry out faster. Your medium will dry out faster versus a 4-inch PVC pipe. Your medium will tend to maintain that level of moisture for a longer period of time throughout the entire day. And also too, your growing mediums tend to be a little challenging in terms of cost. And also too, you need to have a proper structure to hold up this system. Now, a little secret, I use blocks, I use wooden stands, I even use some carrot cases as my stand to hold up my system. So it doesn't necessarily have to be too expensive for you as a home grower. It could be simple, and we have some videos that I'm going to share in a bit that you could use right at home to start off your hydroponic growing journey. So in conclusion, the 10 principles for drip to waste hydroponics. You are able to maintain that moisture presence because you're just dripping. Do not increase your water pressure because increasing water pressure will just waste your nutrient water. With that gradual drip, for that gradual drip, what you are going to be using is little energy. Also, too, you're able to conserve on your fertilizers. And most importantly, you're not going to be over watering your plants. Increase in irrigation frequency rather than volume. Sometimes you may say, oh gosh, today is going to be a long day. I will water the plants when I come home and give it plenty water to compensate for that particular day. Do not go do that. That is a bad practice. If you are going to be watering your plants, water your plants as usual. If for some reason it is too hot, you water again. Do not overwater in one application. So the key in hydroponic farming is not overwatering, but increasing your frequency of application. Maintaining a cool storage area for your nutrient tank. Because if your nutrient tank is in your presence of hot sun, the likelihood of that water evaporating and heating up, and then you apply it to your plant, it will be so concentrated, it could result in burning. It could also result in your plants dying. Avoid watering in the late evenings. Now, I not too long ago reached home, and I know most of you are going through that traffic on the highway would have also not, would also now settling in. And you may say, well, time to water them plants. The best case scenario is if you are going to water, you do a light watering. Because from now until the next day, it is at least 9 to 10 hours that your plant would be in the presence of a high saturated, moist environment. And that is favorable for diseases. So you may think you're doing a good, but it's really a bad to your plants. So the ideal time to do your last watering should be 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If for some reason you are there later, you may want to do a light watering, but even better, you can also use timers to assist with that. That you can water throughout the day without any hassle or even putting your plants at risk. Ensure that your growing medium is always moist rather than it is extremely dry, because if your medium is too dry, that means your roots will be exposed to heat. And when roots are exposed to heat, it will burn and die. So your plant will now have to use new energy to focus on growing back more roots. And that energy would no longer go to the growing of your plants. You find you're getting a delayed growth. So always maintain a moist environment, not an environment where the water is dripping, dripping, dripping. And that video I'm going to show to you, you'll see exactly what I'm referring to. Sanitation is important. Sometimes you may be so eager, we want to get this up and running, and we may forget that these materials come from hardwares, They come from areas that are not most sanitized, and that could also mean you're getting your plant compromised in terms of its health. So make sure when you are going to use your planting equipment in terms of your shovel, your knife, your buckets, that they are properly sanitized. Your mediums should be light and properly aerated. So as mentioned before, what we are going to be using as hydroponic growers is coco peat, and we are also going to be using perlite. That means we have proper drainage, proper aeration, proper water holding capacity, and last but not least, it is giving you the ideal premium medium for good growth, good crop performance, and production. And what I also would recommend to you is that although you are going to grow your crops hydroponically, that does not exclude you from using your pesticides. Pesticides are not bad. How you manage your pesticides could have a negative impact on the crop's health and you as the consumer. So tomorrow, please God, we are going to talk a little bit more about understanding pesticides and how we could apply it in a more secured but more informed way going forward. So pesticides are important to control your different pests and diseases. I'm not sure if you are experiencing this, but we have the giant African snail that is eating everything. So if we understand how to use our pesticides, it will be more efficient for us as growers. If we are using shade housing, we could reduce the amount of heat stress on our plants. And even if we have rodents, I know some of our friends in Tobago, they have their agoutis just eating everything out. So we will have some ways of controlling. And most importantly, be creative. You don't have to be going to build a big system where you need to bring in a plumber, a fabricator to weld up anything. The concept is simple. It's a soilless medium. You could use your nutrients and you could use your substrate and just be creative. Our responsibility is to protect our environment, and by using our sustainable recycling measures, we can do so. So I know that was a lot for us to discuss, but we have developed a video that I believe will give you a little more light on what we are doing, and that should give us the options going forward. And of course, there are organic certified pesticides also available that will ensure that it's more safer to use for both our consumers and also the environment. And we will be going through all the questions in a bit. So let me just pull up my video here in terms of our dripped away system. Welcome to our workshop. Today, we will be constructing a hydroponic system geared for home growers and beginners. These systems will ensure that you are able to grow some of your favorite commodities with ease, efficiency, and most importantly, something that is convenient for you and your family. We will be focusing on the hydroponic approach using drip to waste. The drip to waste system focuses on utilization, optimizing limited water resources, limited space, and for persons who are unable to use high-powered electricity. In some cases, this system doesn't necessarily need to be automated with the utilization of electricity. It can be manually irrigated. Food security is a #1 priority for all persons. Being able to grow your own food
is important for you, your family, and community. Let us dive into our video today, where you will learn how to construct your very own hydroponic system. This could become a family project. My intention is to make this simple, relatable, and most importantly, practical, where you can follow along. Here are some of the equipments that you will require for your hydroponic system build. A jigsaw using a fine teeth blade, a power drill with a appendage to make holes, a hacksaw, measuring tape, a marker using a 4-inch in width template to be able to mark out your PVC templates. This here is your end product, showcasing after you would have cut your templates to create your open area for placing your growing medium and plants. Notice how smooth the cut is and leaving this in between as a bridge to ensure that your pipe doesn't collapse when filled with growing medium. To the bottom of your pipe, you will use a fine bit to make holes along the bottom or underneath of your pipe, going at least a foot apart. So you could either use 3-inch PVC pipe or 4-inch. I will recommend using 4-inch PVC pipe to ensure that your growing medium doesn't dry out throughout the day and you end up using excessive amount of water. First step, measure your area that you're going to work with. Notice I am marking the areas in 3 points, the middle area and 2 end areas. The 2 ends are for your end caps and the middle area is where I'll be keeping where X marks the spot. The horizontal lines will be the area going to be removed after using your 4-inch templates to remove. After enforcing your end caps, let's move on to drawing our lines. This template here is straight to ensure that we are able to get straight lines, and from there it will be smooth sailing going forward. So mark your ends using your 4-inch template. Repeat this on the other end. Using your measuring tape, find the middle point by dividing in 2. After successfully identifying your midpoint, you can now identify your area where you will construct or designate for your bridge. As mentioned before, your bridge is important to reinforce the structural integrity of your PVC grow channels. That is to ensure that when you are filling your grow channels with your substrate, that the excessive amount of weight do not collapse the pipe, and with heavy breeze it will eventually erode the structural integrity of your pipe. This is what we are looking to achieve after cutting. So to start off with your cutting, use your hacksaw to make a slight incision into your PVC pipe. That is to ensure that your jigsaw blade is able to go in between your incision and cuts. This can also be done using a grinder or You could also use other equipment, however, I prefer to use the jigsaw. It tends to give you a nice clean cut and manageable. So you could use your jigsaw here, and there is also a supportive laser light that can help you with straight cuts. Make sure do not go too fast because you can miss your stop off point. That's why it is important to draw your lines. Remember, this is not a race, so you don't need to go too fast. Take control of your machinery and take your time. Once you take your time, you're able to get a nice clean cut. And again, you repeat the same thing, making your incision with your hacksaw, and you continue with your cutting. Step 2. Frame design. Your frame design can either be constructed with 2-inch PVC pipe, regular, which is the thin PVC pipe, or you could opt for, if you have the technical support, to use RHS or any type of metal. What we are going to be doing here, we're using 4-inch PVC clamps, and we're going to space out these according to the size that we want to work with. And you're going to also be reinforcing your PVC with screws. Notice that we are pointing in different directions, and coming to the end of the video you will see exactly what we are doing. Your end caps are optional. That is to ensure that no water gets into your system. The PVC is pointing in different directions. That is to get our bridge to connect and support the structural integrity of your system. Forced by your connections to ensure that your product or your stand does not collapse. The direction in which your PVC tees are pointing is important. That is your connection bars that we will see in a few minutes how important it is. Again, using your measuring tape, your system width is 3 feet in width, and your space between each clamp is 4 inches. This system ideally will work for your leafy crops. Your leafy crops doesn't necessarily need to be spaced out too wide, because we are looking for a system that could be managed for all types of production. System height is approximately 3 feet in height, so Your top tees where you have your clamps will be facing sideways, whereas your middle tee will be connecting to the other tees. Using your PVC glue, just to reinforce, you could wet both ends. Wetting both ends ensure that you get a proper stick and you don't have issues where your PVC will disconnect. However, you also have the option to use your screws. So both can work. However, the screws tend to work better, especially when you're having your systems that are outdoor. Continuing with your 2-inch PVC, you could connect both ends. Repeat the same process by wetting both ends, your PVC T and your PVC. This is important to wet both ends to ensure that you're able to get that proper attraction to both ends. So by doing this, you're securing both connecting pieces. It is recommended that in this part of your build to get a little support, because I needed the extra support myself. Give it a slight push. In my case, it was easy to work with because of my height. However, if you need the assistance, please get the assistance to ensure that you have that support. Let's reinforce using screws. This part could sometimes be tricky because if you're not versed with it, it may be a little challenging. However, the key is to take your time, and once you take your time, you will succeed. So just use a little bit of pressure, and eventually your screws will go in and secure your PVC connections. Repeat this process on all 4 ends, and again, this is optional using PVC. However, it is something that is practical. You can readily get available at your hardware to get all your materials. Now, this system doesn't necessarily have to be so high. If you're a shorter person, you could reduce the height. If you are going to be doing this in an area that's going to be very windy, it's recommended to use a lower height because you don't want it to topple over during the day, especially when you're not home. If you're a tall person or you have pets at home, it's recommended that you use the recommended height. The entire build material will be shown at the end of the video. Let's do a sturdiness check to make sure that we are not having any issues of collapsing. Now that we have gotten all 4 grow channels cut, let's see how we could get this into our system. Now what we will do, we will leave one end with our end caps. However, the other end, we will not put any end caps as yet. That is to ensure that it can easily slide into our stand without having any type of challenges. Watch how easy that would have slid in, and then after that, when you have your growing medium in, you could just tap on your end caps. So our workstation here is where we get all our ideas, do all our testing, and try to figure out how best we can make this approach to hydroponic easier for you. Let's fill our grow channels now. We'll be using already prepared coco peat and perlite. Our coco peat is preferred growing medium because with coco peat we are able to use a medium that is light, properly aerated because it is supported by our perlite, but most importantly it is able to hold enough water or maintain that moisture content throughout the entire day, especially for tropical conditions like ours. That means we don't have to necessarily be over watering, because too much watering could be negatively affecting our plants because it creates a favorable condition for pests and diseases. So we are going to use a medium coco peat that will maintain moisture but not too much moisture content. We also would have put earlier our holes to the bottom of our system in our grow channels to ensure that the excess water will drain out. So let's fill our grow channels with our medium that we already prepared. So it's 1 block of coco peat to 1 pound or 1.5 pounds of perlite. Mix thoroughly and put in your grow channels. You could also use other alternative mediums, however, because this is a system that is going to be small, using PVC, the lighter the material, the better for you as the grower. Moving on to step 3, your irrigation system. With your irrigation system, we'll be using a submersible water pump. From your submersible water pump, we have our reducers from 1 inch to 1/2 inch. The submersible water pump will have to be in water all the time, because once it is out of water and it is in use, it can burn off your pump. These water pumps will have built-in filters and you can increase your water flow. Digital timers, and this digital timer has 2 independent sockets. We also will be requiring some PVC fittings, such as 1/2 inch PVC, 1/2 inch end caps, 1/2 inch unions, to assist us with easily detaching your reservoir from your system. And moving on, we may ask, how could we then maintain a drip? And the drip material is a different material from your PVC. What we have here is converting from PVC to poly. So with your poly tubing, you are able to get a proper drip. But to convert from your poly tubing, you will use your adapters, and your adapters on this end is called a barbed end, which is your male part that can screw into your PVC female end, using thread seal to ensure that you don't have any leakage, and you could screw it in. Now you could either use this one, or you could rely on your PVC ball valve to regulate. In my hand here we have or drip tape. Now this drip tape has built-in emitters. That means that if you are on a slope, you don't have challenges with overwatering on each end. This built-in emitter will regulate your flow. And of course, you could use end caps, your poly end caps, to cap off your irrigation lines. So it's important to test and measure properly before cutting your irrigation lines. What we have here is your locking of your irrigation tubes. So using your blue part, you're going to screw, and by screwing, you're tightening and locking your irrigation tubes from ever coming out. So this here is called a throwback. Using this approach, you are able to ensure that any excessive pressure that may damage your pump or may have an overflow will reduce that flow by having a throwback. This also ensures that your fertilizer will be mixed right in your system. Now, using this approach of putting a union helps for when you want to clean out your system, if you want to change your reservoir or any type of service into your system. This union is important to put in there. So these are called your checkpoints. So your checkpoints are important. So when you fill your reservoir and you have your throwback, if you don't want too much pressure going up to your plants, you can open your valve right out to reduce your pressure. And from there, if you want to expand and you want that extra pressure, you could then reduce the throwback to ensure that you get more pressure to your plants. It is important to use a cover on your reservoir. That ensures that your water doesn't heat up throughout the day and the possible algae and other contaminants getting into your system. So when building hydroponic systems, it's important to use checkpoints, and I love to use your unions. Your unions help a lot with your checkpoints. So from your reservoir, you could either use a uni-seal or rubber mount, or you could drill a hole into your reservoir, whichever one is practical for you to use. So by connecting your union, you are able to have a checkpoint to, if you want to disconnect your reservoir. Because we are using all forms of checkpoints to ensure that you, the grower, have all access and control of your system, you will want to put in a ball valve in there. So from your reservoir, you have a union, and notice I'm pointing out the uni seal. That's ensure that no leakage will occur if you fill your reservoir right up. Your union to disconnect whenever you like for servicing. Elbow, ball valve, another union, and that is optional, but I love to put a union there because if I need to do any type of cleaning, it is important. If you don't want to use a ball valve there, you could use the other poly tubing ball valve. However, you could use one ball valve in this case, where you could regulate the flow just in case something happens. And from there, you install all your irrigation lines, ensuring that you lock all your irrigation channels. Remember, this part you need to take your time to ensure it don't spill, and you have your end caps to reinforce any wastage from occurring. And you just lock your channel, your irrigation tube, that's more or less how your system will be functioning. So let's continue with all 4. The place was pretty breezy today. Nice weather for building hydroponic systems. You can use a end cap over here just in case you want to flush out your system from any debris that could have possibly got into your system during your building or even your growth. Let's do a system check to ensure that we have no leakage or any structural weak points. Let's test our pump. Ensure to fill your reservoir over your pump. And let's do some planting. This system is fun. It is not expensive. It is effective, efficient for self-sustainability. And if you ever have the option to commercialize, it can easily be expanded to the point where you can use it for revenue generation. This system ensures that you are not going to be using too much resources, but most importantly, it is something that you can build on your own with our support here at the Waking Up Agriculture Foundation.
Nice. So that's just one system. I have another system I'm going to share with you. And of course, that video is on our YouTube page. And I will send the link on our WhatsApp group so you'll have access to view and to construct a system. The PDF document in terms of the handout with the list of materials and also to the dimension in terms of your cutting, you'll have access to that as well. So we have you covered and we are checking for you. So I'm going to share another video. This video is for your crops that are your fruiting crops, like your tomato, your celery, so you can have your shanabeni, you can have your tomato growing in the same production, you can have your sweet peppers, you have your bell peppers, you have your more heavy feeding crops, your bodi, your string beans, your melangen. So using this approach, you'll have your drip to waste buckets will be your best option. So I'm going to share my screen now and you'll be able to see the other system, which is your drip to waste bucket system.
Hi friends, welcome back to volume 2, looking at hydroponic drip to waste system, and this time we're going to be looking more on a simple approach for persons who mightn't have all the tools to go about cutting pipes or may not have that much experience working with these equipment, and that's no problem at all. What we're going to look at today is using buckets, or if you have used pans at home, anything that you have that can function in the system, you can utilize. Now, this system is something I will always tell persons it's good to start off learning it. Now, with this approach, you're able to grow your same leafy crops, but you have an option to grow your fruiting crops, like your tomato, your sweet pepper, your cauliflower, broccoli. It's endless. It's a more diverse system, and you can use it either for leafy crops or fruiting crops, and whenever you like, throughout the year. So join me, and let's go through some of the essential apparatus to go about making your drip-to-away system for buckets. So over here we're going to go through some of the items. First, we have your adapters from your PVC to your polytubing, and this will ensure that you're able to convert seamlessly, and to the top of your adapters you have a lock area where you could lock your drip tape accordingly. In this case, we are not using drip tape, we are using your 1/8 or your 1/2 inch polytubing, where you can now put in your drip emitters wherever you are. So this could be customized to whatever system that you are working with, whatever space limit you are working with. Now, with the polytubing, sometimes they mightn't always lie flat on the ground. That's just because how it is imported or brought in, it is going to have that belly in it. So what you can do, a piece of wood, PVC pipe, whatever you may have, you could actually fasten the polytubing onto the wood so it will be sturdy, and you won't have moving up or turning of your polytubing when you're building. So it makes it very practical. In this case, I'm using tie straps to go about making my reinforcement. Now, you could use string, you could use wire, whichever one that you have, not a problem. Now, when I started off my hydroponic journey, I started off using drip-to-away system, and because one, it was more affordable for me, and this particular system was my bucket system. And the bucket system was a diverse system, meaning that I was able to switch whenever I want. Either I'm working with a leafy crop, or I'm going to work with a crop that is fruiting. And because this particular system is so diverse, I'm able to even intercrop and mix cropping. So I may have a fruiting crop growing upwards, and to the bottom I could grow my shallow benny, my scythe, my seasonings. On the table, what we have is a couple of equipments. So what the demonstration here is showing is that how you could more or less use your end caps to reinforce, to ensure that no excess water will be lost with the system. So I'm just showing you what we are looking at. So with this system, you could use the same cocoa peat and perlite mixture seen in our previous videos, and the link will be uploaded. So let's go through what we have here. First, we have our stake, our plastic stakes, which are the blue stakes. What that will do is drip water gradually directly to the root zone, and this will ensure that any excessive water will not be lost. And this piece is called an emitter. These emitters regulate the flow of water. So even if you're on a slope or a gradient, you're going to have even flow or distribution of water. You're going to have your spaghetti tubing, and that spaghetti tubing is very fine, so make sure when you're using the spaghetti tubing that you don't have any debris or organic matter build up in it, because it will clog your pipes. But in this case, our emitters and stakes. So here we have connected our emitters to our stakes. We have our punch, and what that punch does is make a small hole, so no ice picks, no knives. You're using a punch. These punches are designed for this particular purpose. So let's do the correct thing. So go ahead, mark out your areas, and what you could use is a little indication, is a little pop That ensures that we don't go through and through, because if we go through and through, we're going to have leakage. And because it's a tiny incision into your polytubing, it will gradually snap with your emitters. So connect your emitters, place your stakes directly where the root zone will be for your crops, and from there, with the same approach, with your throwback, with your irrigation system, you could see exactly how it's dripping. And that could maintain a limited water supply and can be easily converted into a commercial system. So this particular system is excellent for growers who are now starting off, and you're able to see your crops and your home garden go from challenging to excellent.
Right, so that was the end of the other video, which is our drip-to-way system. Now, that particular system, in my opinion, is more easy to work with. And of course, the links to our YouTube pages will be shared on our WhatsApp group chat for you to have access to it. And the good thing about it is that our friends from Green Habit has given us that commitment that they will be doing and offering prefabricated systems of both the drip to waste, PVC, and buckets for you at a affordable and very great price of $1,800, where you'll be getting free delivery included, which includes everything that could start off your hydroponic growing almost immediately. We have on the chat here that Chris is also putting some information there for us. So we have come to the end of today's session in particular. I hope that you would have learned something new.